Welcome to Weeks Ahead AI, where business owners learn how to use AI to save time, cut costs, and stay weeks ahead.
Welcome back to Weeks Ahead AI. I'm Brad. We've got Terry and Mitch with us, and we've got our second edition with Josh Knudsen here. We're glad you're here again, Josh. You hung back for a little deeper dive into Lium AI.
Can I just say, Mitch was wearing that shirt yesterday. The exact shirt yesterday.
I had a joke teed up as well, and it was that exact joke.
Wow, I had that same one cooking, yeah.
I
And I look just as good today as I did yesterday.
So enough our nonsense.
Yeah, well,
Brad.
this episode we're wanting to talk about the technology, application, and future of AI in the physical world. So we all have we've talked a lot about the LLMs, the large language models, and kind of how they can help us learn and understand kind of language kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But we're wanting to talk about physical data and the physical world. And so that's what you're working on. So for those that hadn't heard our previous episode when Josh was a guest, we've kind of introduced him, but former psychologist and therapist. And so kind of came from a very unique background into the technology space and tech founder, but maybe just a 2-sentence overview on how you got from there to here.
Wow, 2 sentences.
Yeah,
that's going to be
sentences.
really tough.
ChatGPT will give you 47 words if you ask it.
yeah, maybe we should use it. By the way, that would be a good one for the last episode.
Yeah.
Just type really dirty, terribly worded stuff, and then be like, "Give me that in 12 words."
Something
And it'll
polished.
just nail it. Which is what I'll do here. Yeah. So, was a therapist. Wanted to have a bigger impact than I was having as a therapist, and recognized maybe I had some skills laying dormant.
Yeah.
Started a software company, learned a whole lot, fell in love with engineering. I'm terrible in 3-dimensional space. I can't draw or paint or create anything, but with ideas and concepts, and software engineering is that you can really build. So sort of fell in love with it, got excited, learned a lot. And then, generative AI dropped about 2 months after I sold my last company. And so really just dove in head first, and also learned really quickly. And then here I am running an AI company.
So what's the name of the company? And when did it start?
The company's, it was originally Astermind, for those of you out there that have been following along for a while. The company is Lium AI, Lium, pronounced Lium.
Okay.
For those of you that are batting out there on that. And yeah, I mean, I want to say, we were sort of playing around with this in 2024. But I think in earnest, January 2025 was when I really kind of full bore went into it. So we'll call it roughly this year.
So one of the things you learned from your last company was sort of how the capital raising world goes and how that. So you had this idea, you would go raise some money, and you're off to the races.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it doesn't always work that way. Idea to money, but yeah. So raised a bunch of venture capital in the last company. Did a couple rounds of fundraising. Did the Silicon Valley thing and had the private equity exit and all that. So had a good network of fundraisers, and it was a good outcome for everyone. So. It's a little bit easier to do it the next time. You could go with a back of the napkin idea, but for this one we needed it because this was kind of we were training AI models and building stuff. It was sort of expensive to start with, and so we needed to do some fundraising to get it off the ground, and yeah, we did.
And needed to move quickly, right?
And yeah, you got to move really quickly. That's the other thing in this space. Yeah.
Cool.
So I remember when hearing about your idea for the first time and just right over my head, couldn't quite grasp it. So I think I've kind of caught on, but I don't want to try and summarize that for anybody. So why don't you give it to us in a high-level overview of what this thing is?
Yeah, I'm still trying to learn exactly what the right way to say it is. You know, on the website, I use this sentence, ask your instruments, but I think someone said before, what if your instruments, was it you, Brad, that said, like, if your instrument, if your measurements, if your systems could talk to you, you know? Yeah. I think that's it, really, fundamentally, is what it's about, is, you know, you've got all this information, and if you could learn from that information at the speed that you could think, if you could optimize that information at the speed of how quickly you could, you know what to do, but you've got to read all this data and you got it on this dashboard and you're like, well, which one is this? And, if you could just boom, that was sort of the fundamental idea that's possible right now with a spreadsheet. Go upload a CSV and ask ChatGPT to crunch some numbers for you, and it'll give you some insights really, really quickly. Theoretically, that should be possible with a subsurface survey or a satellite or manufacturing, all sorts of equipment in that the data coming off of IoT sensors. Theoretically, it should be possible to do the same thing there, but currently it's not. Well, as of like a couple of weeks ago, I think it is.
Okay.
But yeah.
Is it live? I mean, people are using it, and
people being me and the internal teams that are testing it. Yeah, it's officially alive, and having.
But you've had some really good use cases and kind of proof of concept examples of ways it's worked for you. I mean, if you want to talk about not. Maybe some of those, some examples.
Yeah, I mean,
what you've seen already.
Yeah, so well, I guess I should say there are actually people using it. That I forgot about this. We started out with a partnership with some astrophysicists I talked about in the last episode, but they are actually doing real astrophysics with the system, and we have probably one of the leading X-ray astrophysicists in the world that's working with us, and we were on a call last week, and he was like, this thing does, PhD plus level science. Like, this is crazy. Wow. How are you doing this? So yeah, to see him using that system and that team using the system, and to go in and you see like 50 chats that he's had, and like I go read what he's asking, and I'm like, I don't even know what any of this means, but he gets on a call and he's like, it's right, and he's been grading it, and he's got this big spreadsheet, it's all greens, he's just like, it's right about everything, so that's been cool.
So how much time are you saving him?
So he's for a given one of those, what he's so we take like a source that he's looked at in the sky with a telescope, and you would call it like sort of triaging and learning about that given source. It's a multiple month process between like multiple grad students and then him, and they go back and forth and they sort of write it up and they test this and test that, and it's happening in 75 seconds. So multiple months worth of tasks being done in a minute or two.
Of them.
It's
crazy. So you saved him 4 years.
Yeah, he's just cooking on him, man. Yeah. Well, and this is the exciting thing, and you can think about how to make this analogous to the actual something that is applicable. But what he wants to do is go back through the entire archive of sources for all of history that has been looking this massive telescope, and say, what did we miss?
Right.
What were we wrong about? What things are here that should teach us something we didn't know? And that's the same thing we want to see applied to, if you're running a plant, you can come into all this information and say, how should we have been optimizing this all along that we didn't know? That's there. So yeah, that's been cool. And there are other examples of like more real world use cases I can talk about, but
I want to hear them. Yeah. Like that's where my head goes, is like, give me some practical examples of, I come from an electrical background where, heat is a problem and heat causes failure on electrical components and, things like that. But help me wrap my head around what's possible.
And for the purposes of this, it's not your typical LLM, like a Gemini or a ChatGPT, right? You're completely different in your ability to be able to answer a question like what Terry would want, right?
Yeah. Now, that said, there's your first not great question of the day.
It was actually more of an open-ended statement.
No, it is actually, it's a good prompt in that we are actually leveraging in certain parts of the system, ChatGPT or GPT-5, Claude, all of that. But what we're doing is a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes, and this is what I think, for those of you that are thinking about, that listened to the last episode, there's a lot you can do with these systems just in natural language. There's a lot you can learn, building, websites and software and, brainstorming and all of that. But if you really want to do like the hard work of, autonomously managing a plant or something, right?
Yeah.
Like that is really hard to do, and that you can use GPT-5 to do it. But you have to build a whole lot around it, and that's what we're doing. So, a couple of examples. I think I mentioned the subsurface in the last one. So, I wish we need to do a screen share here so I could show the people the stacked bar charts too. But we in this one. This is. Like resource exploration. If you're looking underneath the earth, you would do like a seismic survey. There's a lot of different. So this actual data pack I'll talk about is it's seismic, it's well logs, it's faults and
this
so
is oil and gas.
Yeah, this is an oil and gas use case. Or again, you sort of like roll it up and call it like resource exploration, right? Because the example that I use, so it's a well-known survey. It's a public data source that they've been, it's been very effective for oil and gas extraction. But I wanted to know, are there any geothermal opportunities, some other like alternative energy? So I can just in natural language ask the question, and if you could see the screen, you'd see that it highlights, hey, there's 10 areas that should be explored here. Gives me a nice visualization, characterizes all the different components that it thought through to be able to do that. And this is an 8 gig cube, which in comparison to what like a language model's context window is 4 megabytes. So this is like, I don't know, hundreds of orders of magnitude much larger than it should be able to work with and characterize holistically, but it can do it because of what we built around it. So that's one. I think satellite data is another one that we've done a lot with.
So did it found some geothermal pockets? Or
Yeah.
some areas it suggests that, hey, you should go check this area out.
Yeah. So this is the one I just talked about. This was the sort of stack bar. And I just asked it, to tell me the things it considered. So if you're not a geoscientist out here, you're probably not going to know what
None of us are.
attenuation is. But just to point out, that here's the 10 that it highlighted. But let me take it. I'm actually going to... Let's go to this one. So this is satellite data. And actually, I made this visualization here to show you.
What was that prompt?
Well, I was doing some interesting, I was playing with some queries. But what this shows you is the size of the data I'm talking to right now in comparison to the context window. You can't even see it. It's sort of a laughable chart to just show you how small this is. There's only 1 month of data from a satellite. I just come in and say, hey, help me understand. So I was actually looking at thermal activity in the Gulf in July 24. So these are, offshore platforms and just sort of staying in that same wheelhouse. But what you can see is it's able to characterize the entire month's worth of data. So this is the, highlighting, these are the main, hot spot days. It shows me the times that had the most activity, gives me sort of a scatter plot of the sort of spatial, how much area it covered and how hot it was. So just to point out, like, it is characterizing this entire thing that it should not be able to do, and that's the whole point of the system that we're building. I think the other one and then we can actually, I think maybe what would be nice for us to do is to talk about some specifics maybe that you all are experienced in. But this is another this is around like strategic thinking. So then, if I can pull all this in and I can look at that data holistically, the geothermal example is about like extracting business intelligence from the data really efficiently, where again, that's a multi-month task to do that, interpreters, geoscientists. But here I'm saying, well, it's not just about extracting business intelligence, but now I want it to like think and plan and do things strategically for me. So I have an area of interest that I'm asking if I can move a 40-ton vehicle across. And this is, I don't have it visualized here, but it's a place in Colorado, just, across the mountains.
Yeah.
And what I did is I give it a set of tools. So it's actually, these are very large, 4 different large, complex data sets that it has to dynamically decide. It needs to go get them, pull them down, organize them, squish them into the way that it can learn. And this is how we've kind of taught the system. But to be able to come up with this, and then you can see how it weights the factors. So I asked it, it's like, hey, basically precipitation are your big problems on these days, but slope hazards are your big issue on this one, And so I am able, again, this is how you can think about, you to use your imagination to think about your systems. But, I come here and I say, well, if I change this parameter, if I say, I'm okay with the 20% gradient threshold, I've driven these things before. You said 15 was too much, but I'm cool with 20. Well, sure. Yeah. If you're going with 20, then recommendation, yes, you can go ahead and do that. And here's the day you should do it. And again, I use these, it's even looking at soil composition for those 5 days. This is a lot of information it's got to pull in real time. And again, the whole point right now is actually, do I have it? Yeah, let's do it. I have it pulled up. Oh man, let's see. Can I click it? Yeah, so I came actually to Claude and I asked it to do the same task for the
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, if you go to Chat or Claude, it's going to give you an answer whether it knows what it's talking about.
All right. It won't show the visualizations, but it gave me a bunch of beautiful visualizations. And then I was like, but it was like, but I kind of, and I'm like, to be clear, you just made this up? And it's like, yeah, I literally made it all up.
Is it because your data was too much for it to process?
And it says like, yeah, it's got network issues trying to access that big of data. They're in the wrong format. They're massive. Like, it's just like, are you kidding me? No way can I do this.
And this is where, like, if you put a simple spreadsheet sometimes into Claude or ChatGPT, it can't decipher it. If it gets too many columns or rows. Yeah. And you threw the equivalent of like 5,000 spreadsheets at this, and it just chewed it up.
Yeah. But I mean, basically the equivalent of 5 million spreadsheets, but in the wrong format too. Like not in spreadsheet format is the thing. And this is another good example where we've been working with someone who does non-destructive testing of generators, and they actually pull down the data in spreadsheets. And they were doing this task in ChatGPT, pulled it in, and we're having conversations with it. But the spreadsheet is like 100 tabs. Each tab has like 5,000 numbers in it. And this person we were talking with is like, but I mean, it's really good, but it hallucinates a lot.
Right.
And we're like, yeah, because it can't do this task.
Can't
process the data like that. But with our system, that's what we're building to basically allow it to be able to do that, to answer those questions correctly every time.
That's crazy.
Really cool.
So when you think about market size, I just think Fortune 500 companies, how many of those Fortune 500 companies have a need for something like this?
I mean, the hope is almost all of them.
Well, you would think that.
Yeah.
Really, I'm like, you can think of needs that are beyond what we know today, and to some degree, there's small businesses that have the exact same type of needs. Mitch, in your former business.
Yeah, we ready to go dog food?
Yeah.
Go.
Okay.
I'd love to go dog food.
Let's go.
He's done talking astronomy and
let him off the leash.
Well, how could this, like, if I put myself in the pet food manufacturing space, we had 2 different processes. We had extrusion, we had freeze drying. So in the extrusion process, we're taking powder, we're mixing water into it, we're trying to get it to a certain cook level, like a gelatinization level of the starch. And most of that's time and temperature, but then the pressure also has a big factor. So the weather outside can make a big impact to how much that product expands when it comes out the end of the barrel. And then how hot can you get your dryer on those days? How much humidity is in the air? How much do you have to remove? Would a tool like this help a company like that? Say you need to throttle down your throughput, you need to increase heat, you need to, like, how would it play a factor in the extrusion process?
That is, I mean, this is the imagination leap I asked on the last example where I'm showing the area of interest and deciding, can I do this, and by the way, that was a request from someone who's in defense, and she wanted the very simple, like, yes, no answer, but I could have been much more complex, right? I could have asked it to say, well, If the answer is no, give me a better route, and if you give me a better route, how, should I think about, like, what if it's warm outside, but it's raining? Does that change the soil composition? Right? So it's the same thing here, right? You get to ask. I mean, with the last episode, we talked about if you had the expert sitting next to you. It's like, imagine the same thing here, where you're trying to make this complex decision with multiple factors. If you had someone who could hold all of the information, all the data that you have, and was an absolute expert in this sitting next to you, you could just ask them and they'd be like, yeah, you need to lower this, change the pressure here, What's the weather today? What's the barometric pressure? Yeah, do this, Yeah. These systems are capable of doing that. They just can't understand the data, and that's what we solve, right? So yes, what you just described is perfectly possible. And the beautiful thing about the language model is you can iterate with it. You get to say back to it, well, actually, in our system, we've had this experience where, X, Y, Z happens. Oh, well, then I would change my recommendation here, and you might need to adjust this. And right, it's a perfect example.
So you put 5 years of data in, and this is our test results from each day. It could go conceivably pull the weather in that area and apply those metrics to this to say, add throughput, lower throughput, raise temperature.
Yeah. What I'm doing in that example that I showed is all I'm doing is I've given our system a set of tools, and I am pointing it at the location of the data. So this is the other big thing for me. If a lot of times when you want to do these tests, if you're, and more sophisticated and you're building, machine learning models, or you're writing like Python code against them, there's a bunch of data engineering that has to happen to get the data into the right format and space to even like extract these kind of insights. But with this system, you don't have to do that. You just point it to the location. Where's the data live? Give it the URL or whatever your like connection credentials, and the tools that we've given it allow it to go do all of that work pretty much autonomously and come back with the recommendation. So yeah, it's the idea is to make it sort of ridiculously easy to just, here's the data, here's the question, go, and it comes back with the answer. And then again, you can refine that and have a discussion around it. But
Terry, I'm afraid that it's just going to be me and you on this podcast now. Mitch is going back into the dog food manufacturing business. It's going to make it too easy for you now. That's really incredible.
Yeah, and those are public data sources too. So like for the weather, for example, I'm just pointing it at a public S3 bucket where I know that weather data gets stored, and so it's pulling in the public data sources. You don't even need the
historical weather data. You can just pull that. All you need to see are runtime reports, production run data.
Yeah. And this is where currently what you would do if you wanted that is you might pull like the text reports, right? And you're going to like load those into context here. But we're talking about, if you have reports, great. But if you're actually just straight up raw information, that's coming from the IoT streams or whatever, you can pull that in as well. And frankly, what we hope is that it can eliminate a lot of those steps that you're taking to give, because you have to take the raw data and you got to turn it into something for your human brain to be able to like make decisions about it. And ideally in this situation, we sort of eliminate some of those extra steps and you just point and shoot and the insights flow right in for you.
See a huge opportunity on food safety with something like this. If you know certain time and temperature and bacteria load, and you can automatically adjust the equipment as it's going based on test results coming in, that'd be really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the future iteration is not just to, and this goes back to the last episode where we were talking a little bit about some of the more complicated stuff, but the future iterations can be not just extracting the insights and asking the question and it gives you the answer and then you go do it, but then you chain that answer to the agent who has the tools to then run the equipment, and then it just autonomously updates and optimizes it, and you just kind of sit back and watch it all and make sure it doesn't go off the rails.
It's like predictive failure. This unit is going to get too hot. Turn the cooling fans on and cool it down before it happens. That's crazy.
Yeah,
it all comes back to Terry's favorite thing, which is how good is the data, right?
Yeah.
Choked me up. I'm sorry.
To the man
that's incredible though. What you guys are working on is, and you have a partner, Ryan, who is he's in Boston, and
Yeah.
he's working side by side every day with these
Yeah.
smart,
He
really smart people.
Yeah, he gets to go up there and hang out at the Center for Astrophysics, and although I'll say, he's working from home a lot more as we've kind of gotten out of that like research phase and into this more actually applying it phase. But yeah, got the co-founder is my roommate in college at UT. We've always wanted to do one together, and we finally got to do it.
Well, that's awesome.
So what do you think? I mean, it sounds like a lot of things, but what's kind of the biggest frontier you think that you can really make a real dent in solving?
Man, that's a great question. You got a good one for the day. Let's go. To be honest, I think it's that next thing that we just said. It's taking it and it's being able to do all of that I'm describing, and then have the agents actually autonomously running systems, which look, I'm not saying that that's not even necessary, by the way. I mean, I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that don't want that, and I think that's fine too. Frankly, there's parts of it that I don't want either. But I think that's a really challenging frontier. And then underneath that hood, what that means is that stuff starts to get really, really computationally expensive. And this is kind of the bigger industry of everyone saying like, well, you can't have, these massive language models doing all these little tasks, they're really specific tasks. And so for us, the long term is about training and building smaller language models that are bespoke for the given tasks. And you can kind of brush over that and get to a system that is really, really useful really quickly with the large language models. And if you can fundraise well enough, you can, spend the money you need to be able to do that quickly and move quickly. But if you want to build a really good long-term sustainable business out of that, you have to start to figure out how to, not use, you don't need, I don't know, what's a good example, like Goliath to like pick up my phone, it's just like I can do it myself with my little hand here, and I think that's the kind of really, really hard thing to figure out, because you have to train each one of those. They got to be bespoke. You have to have data. That's a challenging thing to do.
Interact with each other when necessary.
Yeah.
You alluded to it. Or do you have concerns about just compute power in general, like
in the general like AI world?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you drop the compute and just say power. I think that's the big thing. I think me and Ryan are sort of bullish on this idea that if you, and I think maybe we talked a little bit about when you build these things smaller and you have this sort of, then you can do your compute at the edge. You can do it on devices. You can do them. You got Elon talking about doing them in Teslas, he's got fleets of Teslas sitting around. Why not just run ChatGPT on the Teslas, So I think I'm bullish on innovation. I think someone's going to come up with it, but it's not going to be I don't think we're going to do it by just building bigger power plants really quickly. I think there's going to have to be some clever way to think about how to scale this. And for those of you that are afraid of this whole AI world out here, I think it's a good thing, by the way, that there is a massive bottleneck in the progress here.
Throttle this down a little bit.
That's going to take us a while to figure out. And so I think it actually is, the pace of, if you're afraid of the pace of progress, that's the biggest bottleneck right now, I think, for us to really go.
Some time to work through some issues. Yeah.
Brad, you guys, Brad and Mitch blew my mind recently because they were on a call with Brad's brother, who's, in a data center. They're building a data center out in Utah, and it's in how many cat generators did they?
Was it 65?
650.
Or I'm sorry, 650 cat generators that will be powering this
650 generators.
Bunch of batteries too.
Yeah,
it's that blows my mind. And then when
source.
you start talking about the size and the amounts of data that you're sorting through to get these answers, it's just like I don't understand where all this compute power comes from.
Mm-hmm.
But
Liam is going to.
There's a lot of things I don't understand. By the way,
right, that's right.
Liam's going to figure it out.
Liam's
Well,
going to discover
I
these geothermal pockets, and that's part of our solution.
Right? Yeah,
for sure,
yeah. Maybe that's a big part of it. I mean, there's other resources out there.
absolutely are, yeah.
The rare earths is a big thing we've been talking about as well that are out there to find and maybe have already been are sitting found in a massive data store that hasn't been processed yet. You know, that's one. The other is, I mean, you take these power plants and you point to this system at them, right? And you can actually learn how to optimize that and find ways to
the
improve,
inefficiencies.
right? Which is, you know, sort of the open AI model is figure out how to build AI researchers that are AI, you know, AI researchers.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Fascinating stuff. Well, it's still a little bit over my head, but I think I'm understanding a little bit more. But I see the future in this for sure. And understanding what the LLMs mean to kind of the average person here, building that same type of system for physical data and kind of pulling it apart and understanding it and analyzing it makes a lot of sense to me. So keep at it.
Yeah, thanks,
I think you're
man.
onto something.
Are we allowed to make predictions on this show?
Yeah.
Can we do
100%.
that?
You should
Are
have
we
put
doing
money
that?
behind it.
Okay. Nothing is done for
we'll
free
apply
at this
odds.
table. So I think we're going to see Josh on CNBC one day. I do.
Oh, right.
I think we'll see him on CNBC.
Wow.
Before
This
or
is
after
massive.
November of 2026.
Oh, wow. I'm going to give him a little time. I'm going to say after.
I'll take the under.
Okay.
Well, where
No,
can
it's-
CNBC learn more about Liam?
Yeah.
Where can anyone learn more about
Sorry
Liam?
for clapping into the mic. Lium.ai is the website. But, you know, come to me, you know, this is an early phase company. So the founders, Josh at Lium.ai, Ryan at Lium.ai. If you want to talk to us, email us directly. We're here. We're on LinkedIn, you know, all the good places. So yeah, happy to connect with anybody. Just reach out directly.
Yeah.
This has been fascinating. We got you before CNBC did, so that's a little feather in our cap, right?
Yeah, we'll see how it all plays out. What's the timeline on that one? What's the under?
You got 12 months.
I got 12 months.
November
All
of
right.
That's like
26.
7 years in AI, though.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. I'm gonna put it on it's gonna be a new goal. All right, CNBC
wow.
by
He's actively
12
working
months.
against
Lose
you now.
lose Mitch $3,000. Is that what the?
Well, I've got Brad's from earlier, so it's all good.
Yeah, there you go. You're good.
And thanks for joining us. This is awesome.
Yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for having me. Fun.
You're more than weeks ahead of us, so keep at it. Good work. Thanks for joining us this week on Weeks Ahead. We'll see you next time.